Hello everyone, this is China Paradigm, where we, Dashi Consulting, interview seasoned entrepreneurs in China. Hi everyone, I'm Matthieu David, the founder of Dashi Consulting, a China market research company, and its podcast, China Paradigm. And today, I'm with Navin Williams. You are the CEO of MobileMeasure and director of Fugu Mobile. And in partnership with Predict, you have to tell me how you can do so many things, and that would be one of my questions. You have been in China since 2008, so more than 10 years, 11 years, just before the Olympic Games. And I feel there are two types of people who arrive in China: people who arrive before the Olympic Games and people who arrive after the Olympic Games. Just right before, so you saw all the changes which happened after the Olympic Games and after the crisis, when China became more and more important, bigger and bigger, more and more a paradigm, if I want to use the name of our podcast. So thank you very much for being with us. MobileMeasure is a research company. You do quantitative, you do qualitative. I feel you do a lot of panel as well. And you are very tech-oriented. Actually, when reading your PowerPoint and your presentation, you do so many things that it was hard for me to understand how to present MobileMeasure. But one thing I feel which is outstanding, different from many others, is that you have many projects with online community, moderating a community online with a diary, getting information in the daily life of people. And that's something I will be very interested to dig in later on. So thank you very much for being with us today, this morning. First question, I always ask this question: what's the size of your business, if you can share some metrics?
Right. Actually, as you said, we have three different businesses. So the scale of each is very different. And two of them are companies that I don't manage directly, but I'm involved in a capacity as either consulting or managing part of their business. Yeah. So I can tell you MobileMeasure. Because that's figures that I control and I am happy to share. So MobileMeasure, we are, depending on the year, anything between $750,000 going up to $1.5 million US. So that's the scale. So it's not huge, it's not small, but we are very focused on technology enabled market research. So that is the niche we have picked, and we also do bread and butter research, which is maybe just online or FGDs, but we are known, and our strength is technology enabled research.
It could what does it mean?
Yeah,
that's the thing. What does it mean? Because you say it could be anything. How can you be in the technological world? How can you be anything? Because you have to build a product. You have to deliver a solution. How can you manage having so many things?
Yeah. So the product I built very early in around 2010. And we called it TPV, which stands for text, photo, video. So it was, at that time, it was simply an app which allowed you to capture text, photo, and video. So, very easy to use from a research perspective for communities. So allowing consumers to go and collect real-time data and share their opinion real-time. So it's basically that's what we built, and it's not that. So that is the core platform. Around it, we do a lot of things. So it could be we layer it with survey data. We layer it with maybe an in-depth interview, because that data is very fragmented, because just videos, short videos, photos, and just comments and views. Similarly, we do FGDs, so we have a larger group as well. So when I say that we we are a traditional research company, but enabled by technology. So if a client came and told me they want to do FGDs, I would say, yes, sure, let's do FGDs. But in addition to that, for a few of our consumers, we will also gather some additional data and thing. And it could be even just scraping the web to see, where a category is at the moment. So otherwise, it's hard for us to compete at our size.
I see. Did you develop internally the software, or you outsourced the software?
Yeah. So when I started, a bit about myself, in the sense that I came here as the head of consumer research for Nielsen China. And within a year, that was the worst time to be in China. So, the market tanked, and effectively within a year, I was being relocated to India to on another job assignment within Nielsen. But my family was having too much fun in China, so they didn't want to leave. So I decided to leave Nielsen, and then I joined Fugu Mobile, a digital agency in China. Yeah, so I joined them, and while they're a digital agency, my background's in research. So within Fugu Mobile, I started MobileMeasure. And then, and in fact, even today, we are co-located with the Fugu Mobile, who have their own development team. So we ride on their development team and designers to build and maintain our digital products. So that's how in 2009, I designed it and started building it out. And 2010, we launched it. And in those days, it was really no one wanted to touch it because they didn't feel that it had the scale. So we actually partnered with Kantar TNS then in the region. And we did a lot of work in Asia Pacific, China, and Africa as well. So in the early days, it was more about concept selling and trying and getting people to actually believe that mobile would actually rule the world. And it's funny to think that actually 10 years ago, that was a hard job.
Exactly. I interviewed someone who has the same intuition, the founder of Mobile Now 10 years ago. And his name, there is the name, the word mobile. As for you, there is the word mobile, but 10 years ago, it was pretty new. Could you tell us, for us to understand, why a company like Kantar would use your technology? They are so big. What do they find in your technology they cannot find internally?
Right. So one is that I've been before I started MobileMeasure, I was in research for almost 15 years. So I've been in research, and in those 15 years, around 5 years, I worked for a telecom company as well. So I have a strong grounding in technology and market research. And so I knew the players, I know the market, I know where the gaps are. And maybe I was early into the game. So I was actually. So it's not that. So when I talked to researchers who wanted to, evolve, they got what I was saying. But maybe, if you're early into the market, then you need to do a lot of concept selling. So for them, yes, it's not like they were like just adopting our technology whole house, but they were definitely willing to try it. And that definitely helped, especially in the early years.
I see, because you believe that you were early. That's what actually brought them to use your software your solution because they haven't developed yet, or it was too early to make it mainstream, to make it big enough for them to do it internally?
Yes and no, because now the situation today is again, I still work with Kantar and other big groups. But the thing is that research companies, especially the large one, work in silos. So either they understand research or technology. And the technology part, if there is within the company, it is secondary, in the sense part of operational services. So getting these two together is not so easy. So a research company, especially large ones, where they see an opportunity or they have a desire to move into technology-enabled research, they need someone who understands both the technology world and the research world to distill that for them. And that's where we come in. Otherwise, a lot of companies, they can go to technology providers to help them, say, with a research product. However, if the technology services company does not understand research, and there's no one who can, convert research into technology language and the other way around, it's hard to build something that is actually usable.
I see. So initially you had this app called TPV. I don't know if you changed the name or not after. It was an app.
Correct. It's still there, yeah.
And how has it evolved now? It was about text, photo, picture, and video. How has it evolved now? You talk about mobile community, so I'd like to know more about how much we can do with your solution and what we can leverage.
Right. So online communities actually are quite established and work well. Yeah. Now mobile communities. So our tool works well on that, but there are certain things which, because of the size of the screen and attention levels in mobile, you might not be able to do. So you get larger streams of data, but in smaller chunks. Yeah. So think of it as me writing a letter to you, detailing, what we want to do. So I can do an introduction, I can think. But in mobile, it's just bits, right? So, for example, when we did the audio check, I would have sent you an email saying this is the problem, and you would have sent back a response saying like, this is the answer. But because we were trying to resolve it on WeChat, we were not communicating the whole problem properly. So the solution also is coming in bits, right? So mobile has this thing of continuity. You can have a discussion for longer periods, but it's coming in chunks. So it's very useful for if you're like day in the life of, So say Sunday, you say Sunday is your shopping day. So and I request you to mobile connect through our app and engage with us and the moderator through the day, and I give you tasks. So when you go, I want you to take photographs or videos and give us context to whatever information you're giving. And then that's very useful data, and it's easier to think. So when it comes to real time and instinctive kind of responses that we want, intuitive responses, mobile scores way over online communities. So I think both have their strengths. So it all depends on how deep you want to go, or you're looking for something way beyond, something which, if you're looking for surprises, I would think mobile will give you more, because you can actually have people go out and surprise themselves. Forget about the researcher.
How does it work? So, with the client you have, when you use your product, your tech
Right.
product,
Right.
they make their community. So you pick some of their clients. They download your app. I mean, the clients of the clients, the
Right.
end clients.
Right.
They download your app, and then you moderate through an app interactions with this community. And it could
Right.
be on Sunday, as you say, take a picture of like what is
Right.
happiness for you. And they would take a
So
picture of the blue sky and so on. Could you describe a typical mission and how it works
right,
step by
right, right.
step?
So say we recruit 10 people, and then if a moderator were to live chat with all 10 and communicate with them, it can get very heavy, even if you're
Hmm.
talking about just 10 people. So instead, what we do is we break it up into tasks. So there are defined tasks. So what we call mini surveys, but actually they are simple three questions. Yeah. So first, tell me where you are. So it could be a drop down because we are only looking at type of retail outlet. Yeah. So you select the type of retail outlet, and then it says take a photo, video, or video. Yeah. So once you enter, you take a photo or a video, and then it gives you an open ended, allowing you to give context to the photo or video you have given. Yeah. Or take an audio recording if that is easier for you. Yeah. And so that's it. So effectively, it is three questions, right? So if we want to simplify it, so that we would call one mini survey. And that mini survey, say, would be titled retail. So every time they walked into a retail space, they expected to tap on retail, identify which retail outlet they are in, then of course, then take a
I see.
photograph of it.
And you
And
incentives you give an incentive when they answer each question.
no. Generally, it is for the exercise. So, say we tell them that we want you to work with us for a week. So generally they incentivize for that period of participation.
For
Yeah,
the week.
and it's not per upload.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
so that so then we get all these feeds. So it could be retail, it could be consumption, it could be whatever. So it could be different things that we are evaluating, or it could be simply communication. So we can send them videos to view an ad, or tell them identify ads in the market out there in your daily life that you can relate to this ad, and give us your feedback, to see what concepts of
Okay,
that
so
work, don't.
I understand. So you have an app. This app has notification. It's pop-up a notification to the people in the community, people who have the app, different notification with different communities, to say open the app and now look at the video, watch the video, and then have a survey on the video, like a 15 seconds video of the title for Coca-Cola, and then a small survey to say what do you remember of the video point? Or if they are in a retail, they should actually open the app because you already told them to do that before, and then they use the app to take a picture, to shoot a video, or to write some text. Am I correct? I have a good understanding.
Correct. Exactly. And it could be like one could be ad relationship. So you, as you said, there's a 15-second TVC that you have exposed the consumer to, because when he clicks, it plays that video, and after they view the video, then they are asked, now can you take a photograph or a video of a scene in your daily life, or in your immediate surrounding, that you feel you can match with this video in your life, that it makes sense, or they don't want to do it, and they just need to write an open-ended, I don't see anything that actually that this ad is showing me, or they say that yes, this is very similar to me doing this, or they take a photograph of something that they see and say that yes, this resonates with me.
I see. Interesting. Do you have the function of chat room into your app?
So we have not added chat. We have the option of doing it, but we just found it very stressful. So
For you, for
but
the users?
no, not for the users, for the moderator.
Yes,
So
very
from
time
a research
consuming.
perspective, it's a bit stressful. So we don't normally use it, but it's not something that we cannot layer in.
So you created your own app. It's a native app, right? One for iOS
Correct.
and one for Android. So two
Correct.
native apps. And like 7 years ago, WeChat took the space. Have you
Correct.
thought about integrating with WeChat? Have you used the API of WeChat? Have you done something with WeChat? Or are you still running it independently and asking the user to
Uh,
download your own app?
still ad hoc. Largely, we have integrated with WeChat, uh, and however, we have not really been able to sell it effectively. So I think because the protocols are not there, even in fact, even for our app-based research, the protocols are not there, and qual research alone, I believe, is a very hard business to scale. So, in fact, that's one of the reasons that I started this company with a partner of mine called Predict. And Predict is a mobile enabled panel. And that's a global panel. And in that, we plan to add a lot of qualitative functionality. So actually having consumers from our learnings of TPV, so have consumers who are doing surveys and polls to actually also capture media on our behalf. So videos, audio recordings, photographs. So we are still that it's still early days because there. We are already getting scale on the panel side, online quant studies. So that's a new kind of experience and learning for us. And but we will add these features on it. So hopefully we would be
Well,
able to scale, uh, qual as well using this huge panel we have.
so, correct me if I'm mistaken, but what you are saying is that because you work with this panel company called Predict, you use your app and you don't connect with WeChat because Predict is worldwide and WeChat is China centric. So it wouldn't make sense. Am I correct, or is not
No,
is not the
not that.
reason?
I think one of the reasons we don't use WeChat is one is that we have our own platform, and WeChat. One is it's not scalable beyond China. You're right about that. That is one part, and the second part is that uh, I'm not sure if we were to focus on the WeChat based community, if we would be able to uh, compete with some of the very basic ways that research is sometimes being conducted using WeChat. So sometimes where clients are not willing to spend, you can actually just create a WeChat group of consumers and run a small community for a small period of time. And you don't really have to build a client for software or anything like that. And there's no development. So it's just the data that you collect during those sessions and take that and analyze it and you deliver.
I
So
see.
I think that's a tough fight unless you're building a much wider offer of a long-term community-based and panel. So a community-based solution. Sorry. for clients. And I haven't seen yet uh, uh, a really fleshed out requirement for that.
So we understood what the users have, the app, I would say in China, where they can upload documents, they can interact with you. What about the client? What does it get as a management system? You moderate yourself, you interact with the users, but the client is seeing the results live. Could you describe a bit more about do you call that the CMS or the, yeah?
Yeah. So the CMS has two functions. One is for the setup of the survey, as the mini surveys we spoke about, to actually have those sessions go on. And then the reporting part, where you have that data feeds coming in live. So we have a client view CMS, so clients can view only the data coming live. They cannot edit. They have no read or write rights, but reading rights, but no writing rights. So that is there, and then they get a few other metrics, like how connected the consumers are, who's the most active, inactive, things like that. But yeah. And what we would be able to do at our end is we can download all that feed on a daily basis or an hourly basis, how frequent we want to analyze that data.
Okay, you extract on a CSV.
Yeah, exactly. And all the data gets sorted by topic, by the grouping. So if we have a mini survey on retail, all the videos and pictures that come can be sorted by that topic, or by user, or by date. So very often we want to see maybe on a weekend what the output was, or we want to see by topic whatever was done in retail or at consumer in home. So based on that, we can sort the media as well. And once you sort the media, then it's easier to analyze as well.
Would you mind sharing one or two or three cases to illustrate how it has been used, how the solution has been used? I saw in your document you're talking about Coca-Cola, which use your platform. You talk about many other companies which use a platform specifically for mobile community interaction and diary as well. Would you mind sharing two or three cases?
Yeah. So the Coke case you're talking about actually was our first client customer. That was, I think, 2010. And it was so long ago that we actually created the solution on Blackberries. And it was yeah, so nobody even probably remembers BlackBerry. So we actually built it internally for the Coke team globally. So Coke Global, the team globally, could actually, in a way, build a community of their own of people they identified in different countries Coke operated. And they all had Blackberries, which is company phones, and then it moved to iOS as well. So they allowed these employees to look at Coke global objectives and feedback very quickly. So what happened was, say there was the Olympics, and there's a campaign going globally, but that campaign did very well in China, but that same campaign didn't do well in India. So by a couple of weeks, because the Global Insight team had these people who use the app to walk into a store and say that the displays the retailer is hiding, because he feels it's not doing well, or they're very proud of it, and it seems to be people are crowding, and those photographs were uploaded using the app and sent centrally. So the team could quickly look at the results and go to management and tell them that working in China, not working in India, things like that. So that project we did for around 2 years for Coke before it was disbanded. So
2 years.
then, yeah, we did that for 2 years. I think 10 and 11, I think, or 11 and 12, 11 and 12, yeah. And then we've also done food tracking. So, day in the life of, we don't realize the amount of snacking we do. And, we were trying to find out for a dairy client of this snacking, how much was milk based. And we saw people are having a lot of milk based drinks, yogurt, and then mixing it up with chips, biscuits, and other and a lot of traditional food as well. And the snacking pattern is throughout the day, so it's not like there are fixed meal times. And we did it at actually quite a large sample size, and we found that snacking was literally a 24-hour process, except when you're sleeping, you're not snacking. And a large portion of that is milk-based products. So that was quite revealing for the client. Another one we did was in the retail space. So we know that natural foods, organic, that is a big theme. And packaging companies want to get out of, get into that space. So when health becomes more heightened, their products, they are there to offer products for clients. So one of the things we did for a beverage company was actually go into, consumers went into stores and they went to the fresh produce section. And then they identify fruits and vegetables they considered to be fresh, fresh and clean. Now, we matched that with another exercise they did with where they went to the packaged goods section and identify products and goods and brands that they thought were natural and refreshing and pure. And then we could see what is working, what competition is doing. Are we in the considered set? And are there any gaps for innovation in products?
I see. You're talking about passive tracking in your PPT, and
Yes.
For me, passive tracking is very linked to localization. So GPS, or the mobile, and so on, so you can know what people do, but also maybe what people browse as well on their mobile. Could you tell us more about what is passive tracking? What do you do with passive tracking? And is it the same app you are using, or it's another solution? How many solutions do you have, by the way?
Okay, so our main product is the on the quali side, we use a lot of TPV, the app based. On the quant side, we do a lot of online surveys. And then actually, my partnership with Predict started with passive tracking. So they initially had built this passive tracking solution, and I started working with them to fine tune that. Over time, what has happened is that passive tracking of data has so Apple doesn't allow you to do it. And now Android doesn't allow you to do it as well. So
how do you define passive tracking?
So you can monitor all browser activity on the mobile phone. You can monitor all activity of apps, what app is being used, how long it's being used, when it's being used. And of course, location services will allow you to know that where they are using these apps, where they are at a given point of time. So that is effectively it. Now, the really powerful data from passive tracking is if I can tell you if you're using a shopping app and within that app, what I browsed, what I bought, what I did not buy, but considered to buy. This is powerful information, and that is something that clients are willing to pay for. And that, unfortunately, is the gap in passive tracking on the mobile, because unless you have cooperation of these apps itself, you cannot know that data. So, as I told you, there are a lot of security restrictions now. So you can get the session you had in a certain app, say a shopping app, and you spent half an hour on it, between so and so and so and so. But I cannot tell you what you browsed, what you bought, and things like that. So while passive tracking, the same thing can be done online. Online, you are getting that information. So that data actually with Predict in the US, they have some clients where we sell it. We have consumers, so you'll be able to know the basket that the consumers on that panel study have bought in a week, what they bought, categories, SKUs, things like that, those details, and also which online platform they bought it on. So that is slightly more evolved on the online side. But I think for the developing world, where we are generally one device users, so most people do not have tablets or PCs and laptops, but penetration of mobile is very high, and that's increasing, and all their lives and all their interactions are happening on the mobile phone. So if you don't get that depth in mobile, then passive, I think, is very tough. And also, I think with the whole privacy concerns, some of our clients, in fact, they have, when they went back to their legal teams and said that, no, you cannot do this with consumers. So even if we offered it, some of our largest clients would not do this research.
Even with the consent of the consumers.
Yeah.
You said passive tracking was more possible online on PC and more difficult on mobile. So technically speaking, on mobile, you were using the API or the SDK of the phone of the company or the OS, and for online or for the computers, you would basically add a plugin to the browser on Chrome and Internet Explorer, and then you get the consent of the user, and you'll be able to track what they do. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes, that's exactly.
I see. I understand. Okay, got it. So you have been partnering with this company called Predict, and I looked at your data, and what is funny is more a fun fact than something very deep I'm going to talk about, but is that the balance, the gender balance between men and women, it can vary a lot. And in India, I think you have 65% of male and 35% of women. And that's the same in Vietnam. How can you have such an unbalance? When in China, it's pretty, the panel you have is pretty like 55, 45%. How do you explain that?
I think social differences are very high, and usage and access differ largely. So 60-40 is not so bad. If you went to, say, some other countries like Bangladesh and thing where we are opening panels now, the difference is even more stark. So,
access to mobile.
Yeah. So I think it depends on the country and the society. If you go to Indonesia, penetration of smoking is very high, but not amongst women. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just demographics differ, and acceptance and penetration within those societies differ. Very often, it's a single phone household, and the male member of the family, the chief wage earner, he's the one carrying the phone. And everyone else, if they wanted to use it, they actually have to request usage of that.
I see. We just talked about the panel in India, and you have been working in India. You are from India.
Yeah, I am from India.
Yeah. How would you compare India and China? That's a more broader question here. But
Right.
I remember when I was studying in Peking University, there was this book called Chindia, like China, India together. And I looked at this book. I was saying, is it really a concept? Can we really put those two countries together and think it's like an economic zone? I feel they are very different. The only point in common they have is that it's a very big population. It's the biggest population in the world. How do you compare both of India and China, which are raising countries, economically speaking? But my point of view, and I don't know India as much as you do, is that they are still very, very, very different.
Yeah, it's very different, and so if you take China, there's a lot of strengths in terms of infrastructure support. Consumers have access to a lot more resources. While in India, a lot of the country is still underdeveloped and rural, and even in urban, there's a big divide between the socioeconomic classes. So, because of that, in some categories, they're very mature, and there's a huge history and legacy of brands and things for decades, almost a century old, while brands here may not have that legacy, maybe 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40-year-old brands, maybe if you're lucky. But for instance, take coffee consumption. Traditionally, not a coffee drinking country, but China has such huge growth, and for Starbucks, it's their number one market. And in India, they barely have a few stores at airports and select few cities. So it's a very rare thing to see. That's because coffee has been in India for 100 years, and a consumer knows their coffee, and they can get a good coffee for half a dollar or less. So what will make them pay $5 for a coffee? How many people are there to do that? So very value conscious consumers. And so it's not just the power of the brand, but the product as well. Not that it's any different here, but I'm saying new categories, I think, have acceptance is far greater in China than, say, in India, where you already have a lot of these categories established for long periods of time, even if it's small pockets. So in India, we have coffee preference regions, tea preference regions, and so distinct markets. And even within the tea market, how the tea is drunk in one part of the market is different from another part of the country. So we have officially over 22 languages, and even doing research is a challenge, because you need to have that much. If you really want a national perspective, it is very hard to get in India. It's like literally you have 22 plus different distinct cultures out there to deal with.
I have a question actually about India and China. India is known to be able to develop a lot of tech. I think Sapiens from Publicis has most of his team in India. Have you be able to experience for your own company this and to develop in India your solution to be able to leverage for China and for the world, or you have done everything in China locally?
No, the early days we did everything in China, but we do maintain a team in India. We find that development in China is more efficient and faster. Uh, that may be just our experience because we sit here. I guess we can put more attention to it. In India, we do a lot of the R&D work in India. So so if we're talking about 3D imagery, how to add it for say product testing or things like that, something that is not mainstream, but we think that it is. So we'll have our team. Anything that is non-critical thing, we use our India team. Or if there's overflow of work, we use the India team. And increasingly, I think for a lot of the operational work, research, scripting of surveys and things, that again we have started to use the India team more.
So MobileMeasure, you have part of your team in India. I didn't ask you the size of your team actually.
we are still actually very small. So in China actually only 5 because we don't count any of the developers as our team. They're all Fugu. Yeah, and Fugu is around 55 people. Yeah, and so together we are around 60. And in India it's around 12 people. So total 17, 18 people.
Okay. But you are mixing with Fugo Mobile and the 5 in Shanghai working within MobileMeasure. How many in India are working for MobileMeasure, or it's mixed?
Oh, the India team is Predict and MobileMeasure. Fugu has another team as well, which is again the same size.
Okay, I see. Interesting. And that actually linked to another question I have with the relationship between India and China. I feel there is a lot of capabilities in India in research. There are so many research companies actually contacting us. We are in touch with from India, which are doing market research all over the world. And I don't know if you have found the same challenge, but they are very, very value conscious. I mean, they want the lowest cost possible, and I don't even know it's possible to run research with such cost structure. How do you react to that? Do you have the same experience?
Yeah. So in China, again, I think it comes down to let's just talk about Kantar's research company in India. IMRB has been in operation since the 20s or 30s. Yeah. So almost 100 years of operations. So research has been formally being conducted for that long. Yeah. While in China, again, the industry is not that old. Yeah. From an industry perspective. But its evolution has been actually very rapid. Still, so you have a market which is huge. So almost $1 billion is what the research market in China is, and where it is still fine tuning. While in India, very savvy researchers, because they have been used to it for a long time, but the project value is very low, and if you're not doing volumes, it's very hard to sustain in India. But for a multi-location business, or you're doing a lot of multi-country studies, India works well because it's a good low-cost base with high talent. So you could do some processes in India, do other processes that you need more hands-on, and be there wherever you're located. So that's actually been India's strength for many, now I would say a couple of decades, with a lot of the multinationals moving their R&D centers, their development centers, their entire even customer relationship, a lot of things, the non-face-to-face have all moved there. So, but I think that also is evolving, because costs are not stagnant. That's also rising. So there is a shakedown in the Indian market as well.
Last question for you, and especially again, relationship between China and India. We've seen Chinese companies going overseas, and when they go to Europe and they see so many countries, so many differences, so small countries, like some countries are not even the size of a city of China. Like Belgium is smaller than Shanghai, and France is the size of one province in China. It's difficult for them to be massive, to sell a brand, to sell a specific product, like Xiaomi, like Oppo. And some apps as well are going overseas. And we found out through some of our research that Chinese companies are doing pretty well actually in India, some of them. A third of the top apps in India are Chinese. A third, 1/3, or maybe 25%, or maybe a bit less, but it's massive. And do you see this trend? Are you living it? Do you have some Chinese clients who are asking you advice to go to India?
We have ad hoc work for local clients, but more active kind of relationship at the moment. In fact, in India, the number one phone company is actually Xiaomi. So I think, as I said, India is very value driven, and if they see value in a product or service, I think they would give it a shot. So in the early days, I would say not the top end products really reached the Indian market. So there was a low reputation for the products coming from China, and they didn't do well. But now increasingly, some of the companies are investing and offering their services, which is being bought. So I think localization, how well the Chinese companies continue to do in India, would be driven by localization, because India is not one victory. It's like could be 1,000, 1,000,000 Belgiums. So you're like, so it's a very diverse country, and you have to win all those battles. So it's a very tough market. So
much more fragmented than what we think.
Very, very, very much so.
Interesting. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate. It was very interesting. We went in depth in technology, in cases, and I really like you to share with you about the differences between India and China. There are other questions I would like to ask about blockchain, about surveys, about maintaining a panel. That would be maybe the opportunity for another podcast, because we run a bit out of time. It's already 1 hour of interview. Thank you very much again, and hope everyone enjoyed the talk.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Matthieu. Okay. Good talking. Okay. Bye-bye.